Merlin and the Dragons. The night was dark, and storm clouds marched along the sky. Rain beat against the gray castle walls. Inside, in a bedroom hung with tapestries, the young King Arthur had trouble sleeping awake. He was frightened asleep. He had disturbing dreams. At last he climbed out of bed, took a candlelight his way, and started out the door. Suddenly remembering his crown, he turned back and found it under the bed, where he'd tossed it angrily hours before. It felt too heavy for his head, so he carried it, letting it swing from his fingers. As he walked along the hall, strange shadows danced before him, but none were as frightening as the shadows in his dreams. Frightening as the shadows in his dreams, he climbed the tower stairs, slowly, biting his lip. When he reached the top of he pushed open the wooden door. The old magician was asleep in his chair, but woke at once, his eyes quick as hawks. "What is it, boy?" the old man asked. "What brings you here at this hour?" "I am the king, Arthur said, but softly, as if he were not really sure. "I go where I will." He put the crown on Merlin's desk. "You are a boy," Merlin replied, "and boys should be in their beds asleep." Arthur sighed. I could not sleep," he said. "I had bad dreams." "Ah," Merlin nodded knowingly. "Dreams." He held out a hand to the boy, but Arthur didn't dare touch those long gnarled fingers. "Let me read your dreams." "It is one dream, actually," Arthur said, "and always the same. A fatherless boy who becomes king simply by pulling a sword from a stone." "Ah," Merlin said again, withdrawing his fingers, "I know the very child, but if you cannot tell me more of your dream, I shall have to tell you one of mine. After all, a dream told is a story. What better than a story on a rainy night?" Arthur settled onto a low stool and gazed up at the wizard. A story. He hadn't known he wanted a story. He'd come seeking comfort and companionship. A story was better than both. He listened as Merlin began. Some great pictures. In a small village, high up in a rugged mountain of Wales, lived a lonely fatherless boy named Emrys. Dark-haired and and small, with sharp, bright eyes and mouth that rarely smiled. He was troubled by dreams, sleeping and waking dreams of dragons, dreams of stone. His mother was the daughter of a local king and tried to be both mother and father to him. But not princess, but a princess is only a taught lute songs and needlework and prayers. She never once climbed a tree. Never never once climbed a tree after a bird's egg, or skinned her knee pursuing a lizard, or caught a butterfly in a net. Emery's had to invent that part of growing up himself, and a lonely, lonely inventing it turned out to be. The other boys in the village teased him for not knowing who his father was. Mother's babe. They cried, chasing him from their games. So Emery's went after birds' eggs and lizards, butterflies, and frogs by himself, giving stories of their creation, enchanted, strange sounding spells, because he liked the sound spells that sometimes seemed to work, most times did not. But he never told his dreams aloud. Dreams of dragons, dreams of stone. Another nice picture. Now in the village lived an old man who knew all sorts of things, from reading and writing to how birds speak, and why leaves turn brown in autumn, and because Emery's was the son of a princess, the grandson of a king, the old man taught. Sorry, I got to adjust there. Old man taught him all he knew. It was this learning that brought the village boys to him, not in friendship, but in curiosity. They would ask Emery's to show them some trick with the bird. With the birds, or tell them stories, glad for the company. Emery's always obliged. He even took making up harmless predictions to amuse them. The rain will soon fall, he would say, and often did. The first spring robin will arrive, and soon after it came. Now it came. Now any farmer's son could have made the same right guesses, and after a while the village boys were no longer impressed. However, one day Emery's found a book of seasons and planetary movements in the old man's cottage, and read it cover to cover. Then he went out and announced that to the astonished boys, "Tomorrow the sun will disappear." The next day, next day at noon, just as the calendar had foretold, an eclipse plunged the courtyard side into darkness. The boys and their parents were equally horrified, and blamed Emery's from then on, and he was called Demon's son, and avoided altogether. Years went by. Emery's grew up terribly alone, dreaming dreams he did not understand. Dreams of shaking tower, dreams of fighting dragons. One day, when Emery's was 12, a cruel and ruthless man named Vortigern came to the valley. Vortigern had unjustly declared himself high king over all Britain, but the court country was at last in revolt against him. He had been forced to flee, riding ever farther north and west. At last he had arrived at the foot of Danny Emery's, the mountain, which towered above the village, with a bedraggled army on tired horses, bearing tattered banners emblazoned with red dragons, and a handful of court magicians rode with them. Fort Gurn pointed to the jagged mountain peak. There, he said in a voice hard and determined, there I will build my battle tower, so that I may see my enemies when they approach. He turned to his soldiers. Gather the people of this village, and bring them to me, for they will be the hackers and haulers. They will make me a tower of stone. Young Emery's looked on the amazement. Banners sewn with red dragons. A tower of stone. Such things had been in his dreams. What could all this mean? The Welsh stonecutters began their work under a watchful eyes of the soldiers. For many days they mined the stone, cutting huge pieces from the sides of Denny's Emery's. They swore they could hear the cries of the mountain at each cut. Next they hauled the stones with ropes. Their little Welsh ponies groaning with the effort. Finally came the day when they built the tower up on the mountainside, stone upon stone, until it rose high above the valley. The night Emery's went to bed and dreamed once again his strange dreams. He dreamed that the tower, the very one built by Vortigern, shook and swayed and trembled to the ground. And he dreamed that beneath the tower slept two dragons, one red as Vortigern's banner and one white. The very night the High King's tower began to shudder and shake, and with a mighty crash came tumbling down. In the morning, when he saw that what had happened, Vortigern was furious, convinced the villagers had done it on purpose. Your work is worthless, he bellowed at the Welshmen. You will be whipped, and then you will get to work all over again. So the Welshmen had to go back to their stonework, great welts on their backs. They hacked and hauled, and once again the tower rose high above the valley. But the night they were finished, it was the same. The tower shook and tumbled to the ground. By morning there was only a jumble of stones. Vortigern drove the villagers even harder, and by the following week the tower was once again rebuilt. But a third time in the night a great shudder went through the mountain, and the work once again lay in ruins. Vortigern's rage could not be contained. He called for his magicians. There is some dark Welsh magic here. Find out the cause. My tower must stand. Now these magicians had neither knowledge nor skill, but their fear of Vortigern, they put on a good show. They consulted the trees, both bark and root. They threw the magic tricks of prophecy they played with the sacred stones of fate. At last, they reported their findings. You must find fatherless child, they said, a child spawned by a demon. You must sprinkle his blood on the stones. Only then will the gods of the land let the stones stand. They smiled at one another, and Vortigern smiled of those sure that what they asked cannot be done. Vortigern did not notice their smiles. Go find me such a child. The magician stopped smiling and looked nervous. We do not know if any such child exists, they said. We do not know if your tower can stand. Furious, Vortigern turned to his soldiers. Gold to whoever brings me such a child, he roared. Before the soldiers could move, a small voice cried out, "Please, sir, we of the village know such a boy." The speaker was spinely lad named William. "Come here, child," said Vortigern. Name him." William did not dare get too close to the High King. "His name is Emrys, sir. He was spawned by a demon. He can cry to the sun from the sky." Vortigern turned to the captain of his guards. "Bring the demon's son to me." At that very moment, Emrys was on the mountain with the old man, absorbed in a very strange dream under the ruins of the tower. He saw two huge stone eggs breathing in and out, just as he emerged from his dream. He was set up by Vortigern's soldiers. "What shall I do?" he cried. The old man put a hand on his shoulder. "Trust your dreams." The soldiers quickly bound Emrys and carried him to the High King, but Emrys refused to show any fear. "You are a boy without a father. The boy spawned by a devil," Vortigern asked. "I am a boy without a father, true," Emery said, "but I am no demon's son. You have been listening to words of frightened children." The villagers and soldiers gasped at his impudence, but Vortigern said, "I will have your blood either way." "Better that you have my dream," Emery said. Only my dream can guide you, so that your tower will stand." Ah. Demons. The boy spoke with such conviction, Vortigern hesitated. "I have dreamed that beneath your tower, lies a pool of water that must be drained. In the mud you will find two hollow stones. In each stone is a sleeping dragon. It is the breath of each sleeping dragon that shakes the earth and makes the tower fall. Kill the dragons, and your tower will stand." Vortigern turned to his chief magician. "Can this be true?" The chief magician stroked his chin. "Dreams can come true." Vortigern hesitated. No longer untie the boy, but watch him. He said to his soldiers, "And you, Welshmen, do as the boy says. Dig beneath the rubble." So the Welshmen removed the stones and dug down until they came to a vast pool of water. The soldiers drained the pool, and just as Emrys had prophesied, at the I lost my place. pool's bottom, lay two great stones. The stones seemed to be breathing in and out, and at each breath the mud around them trembled. "Stone cutters!" cried Vortigern. Break open the stones." Two men with mighty hammers descended into the pit and began to pound upon the stones. Well, once, twice, three times, their hammers rang out. On the third try, like jet of lightning, cracks and ran around each stone, and they broke apart as if they had been giant eggs. Out of one emerged a dragon, white as new milk. Out of other a dragon red as old wine. Astonished at the power of his dreaming, Emrys opened and closed his mouth, but could not speak. The men in the pit scrambled for safety. The High King Vortigern looked pleased. "Kill them. Kill the dragons." But even as he spoke, the dragons shook out their wings and leaped into the sky. "They are leaving," cried the chief magician. "They are away," cried the soldiers. "They will not go quiet,"